Two members of the Coutts Three have been sentenced after having been found guilty of mischief over $5,000. On Friday, Marco Van Huigenbos was sentenced to 4 months in jail, while George Janzen was sentenced to 3 months, which will be served in the community. The third member of the trio, Alex Van Herk, has not yet been sentenced, and he's here today with us to break it all down. I'm Rachel Parker. Welcome to The Rachel Parker Show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rachel Parker Show. I'm your host, Rachel Parker. Joining us today is Alex Van Herk, one of the members of the Coutts Three and the only one who has not been sentenced yet. Alex, thank you for being here today. So I want to start right off the hop. I know that the other two, George and Marco, were sentenced on Friday. The judge asked them to sit in the prisoner's box, and as soon as the sentencing was read out, Marco was taken to jail where he will serve his 4-month sentence. I know that you've spoken to him. I saw on Facebook that you had spoken to him since he's been in jail. What did he have to say?
So his main thing was, we kind of expected, that there was going to be a jail sentence attached to this, right? Mischief is what it is, and the sentence for it is a lot of times is jail. His disappointment mainly is in the difference in sentencing between George and himself. He realizes they were both found to be abating and abetting in the charge, where I was just abetting the activity, I guess, of mischief. So he figured he was going to get 30 days, and George would get off on conditional sentence. We always knew George would get off on the conditional sentence. We always felt that. But the big difference of the 4 months to nothing was definitely, it was hard on him. Like, he didn't expect that. He was kind of prepared for between 30 and 90 days. So when he heard the sentence of 120 days, that one really took him aback. Like, it just, but he said, you know what, at the end of the day, he has no regrets. He says he did what he did with the knowing of, okay, if we go to Coutts and participate in this, and this goes for everybody that participated in Coutts, knew there could have been a consequence from that. So he says, I guess if I have to be the bearer of that consequence for the big change that he made, he says, I'll do it with my head held high.
One of the differences between George and Marco's sentence that the judge had said was that George had showed regret for his actions and Marco did not, which I think is sort of what you just said. Marco acknowledged that he would maybe have to face jail time and that he did that. He recognized that someone was going to end up taking responsibility for those actions and it ended up being him. For yourself, do you feel like at any point during this proceedings, have you expressed regret for your actions or have you said, no, I did the right thing and I'm proud that I stood up at Coutts?
Well, and as I said, I have no regrets of my actions. Do we have regrets of some inconvenience we caused to our fellow people in Alberta? But there again, look at the inconvenience COVID had caused to everybody. So a little inconvenience of not being able to cross Coutts border, was that really detrimental to anybody's health or anything along that line to what COVID and the mandates were doing? And as I said, I regret. I had a lot of fellow farmers and stuff and grain traders that weren't able to trade grain because a lot of them were coming through that Coutts Sweetgrass border, and they were upset with me, absolutely. But they said, Alex, we understand. So we'll put up with the inconvenience for what the big picture is doing, what the change you guys are asking for. And that's why I said I have regrets of that part, but not regrets of participating in that blockade. And I feel we made a huge change in Alberta, in Canada, in the world with what happened there.
So it's interesting that you say, even speaking with Canadian and Albertan grain farmers who I'm sure were experiencing financial loss due to the Coutts border blockade, they were initially upset, but it sounds like they were able to say, you know what, we're able to get behind what you're doing. So in the end, did you have support from those farmers or did they maintain that it was the wrong thing to do?
Oh, no. We definitely had support from the farmers. I know personally of some farmers that were big brokers that were shipping 10, 15 loads a day out of Sweetgrass that 100% donated, supported it, because he says, you know what, I have some financial loss, but the loss, long-term loss, he said, for my children and family is way bigger than this economic loss. And but at the end of the day, he was able to go through other borders, and it cost him a little extra money, to go around to do it. But he said, probably the biggest loss was probably to the cattle feeders that weren't able to ship cattle, because Coutts is one of the only ones in Alberta, I believe, that has the CFIA veterinarian on staff there, where cattle have to be inspected to go down south. So that impact was definitely bigger on the cattle feeders. But I know some of the big cattle feeders that were affected by it later on came up to me and shook my hand, that were absolutely fuming at me, that called me and were upset when we were in Coutts, and later on got to see the big picture and apologized and said, Alex, it's the best thing that ever could have happened.
Wow. You yourself, on Friday, your lawyer, your legal counsel, stood up and said that he had been fired, and the court gave you 30 days to sort of get your affairs in order before you receive a sentencing. What went on there?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, so Marco hired a new lawyer, Brendan Miller, and Brendan Miller was really pushing the concept of the law of equality, where he felt that, we were not the principal offenders. There was principal offenders there that the RCMP were aware of and who they were, and they never got charged. So Brendan Miller was trying to bring that, law into perspective, and wanted all the lawyers to be on the same page and saying, okay, the law of equality, I think it was Roe versus Adams, it was one of the case law you want to use to bring that forward. And I read it all, and I really liked it. And we were aware of this admissions that Brendan Miller was wanting to bring forward already in early December. And I reached out to my lawyer and said, hey, have you looked at Brendan Miller's approach on this? I really like it. I think it's possible that we could go this way. And he didn't want to go that route. He says, you know what, I don't think it's going to work, and I don't think it's going to fly. And I says, well, what have we got to lose at this point? I mean, we know we're guilty. We've been found guilty. But if we can bring this forward and the judge accepts it, then why not? And right up until I think the Tuesday before, 2 days before, I was trying to reach out to convince him. I was showing him the angles of what we wanted to do and what we wanted to use. And he refused. And I said, well, Michael, I'm sorry, but I feel that this approach has some chance of the judge accepting it. So I said, I'll have to find counsel that will. And Brendan Miller knew also that, he says, if everybody wasn't on page with this, then it wasn't going to work. So he says, even if we have one that's against it and the other one not, and I thought, well, the only way that I can see that it's going to go against is if I terminate my lawyer. So that's what I ended up doing.
So are you still searching for legal counsel, or did you end up hiring Brendan Miller?
No, so I cannot hire Brendan Miller. I was hoping to, because I felt he did a great job up there on Marco's defense. But there's a conflict of interest. Until Marco is out of jail, he cannot represent me. So he did give me some names of other legal counsel. I've reached out to him, but I don't know. It's hard to make a decision now. Basically, like I heard the judge say in the sentencing, and then even in mine when he was talking to me at the end, that he wasn't going to go through the whole process of reading all the case law and stuff on my sentence. So he's already made up his mind to some degree. So now it's either I got to look at, okay, do I have a chance of an absolute discharge based on what I was only charged with or what they found? So my culpability involved in the whole sentence was the lowest of all the three. So it's either, do I look for 100% discharge and go that route and get legal counsel to help me with that, or I just accept the sentence what the judge has in mind. And then there again, do I give an apology letter? I'll never give an apology of the fact of what took place in Coutts. I could possibly write a letter same way George did, because George didn't apologize for what happened in Coutts. He apologized to the people in Coutts and Milk River for the inconvenience he caused to the people. So, people right away got upset with George of apologizing. He did not apologize. And the other thing that really bothered me about it is the judge mentioned in his sentence that George was on his way to what word did he use? That he was rehabilitation. And I was thinking, well, talk about somebody that's being rehabilitated is Marco. If I look at from blocking the border or participating in a blockade to one of the biggest advocates in change in the political world in the last 2 years, to becoming a director in one of the biggest CA boards in Calgary, is that not something that, to me, that was a huge change? Is showing that he wanted to use the democratic process in future, changes, but he didn't even use that in a sentence, and that's what really disappointed me.
You said that you have the least culpability, so are you expecting then an even lesser sentence than George Janzen, who received essentially 3 months of community service?
Well, the possibility is there that I get that based on the law, on the statement of facts. I have the statement of facts here from the judge, and reading through that, they have the least amount of evidence on me as to basically the judge said I was a cheerleader in the event. So, I technically he should give me less, but there again, I don't know. He can do whatever he wants, right? So it's a hard decision to make for me now as to what direction to go.
Looking at this all, a few years out, obviously, we finally have Trudeau's impending incoming resignation. We're going to have a Liberal leadership race following that. At some point in the year, we're going to have a federal election. Do you feel like any of this stuff has happened in parts of the Coutts blockade and the Freedom Convoy? Or what would you say the lasting impact of the Coutts border blockade has been?
So probably the lasting impact is the main number one is the mandates have been lifted. That's number one. Long term, I do believe a lot of credibility was lost in the Liberal Party because of how he handled the trucker convoy and the Coutts blockade. If he would have faced it and faced the people, I think he could have kept his credibility. But after what he did there and not coming out to discuss it with, and that was a large group in Ottawa, and I think from there on, it's been a downward slope for the Liberal Party.
I know that some of the members of the Coutts, I'm not sure whether this includes yourself, but certainly for Marco, people are looking for support for people who are listening to this show and they want to support you guys. How can they do that?
So we have two ways to support. My wife has started an e-transfer thing to put money on his canteen for in jail. So that can be donated through the email address is vanherk09 at gmail.com. So that would be just donations where he can top up his canteen to make sure he has extras, little things, his phone, every phone call costs money. And then as far as legal and family support for while he's in jail, there's a Give, Send, Go, and I'm trying to remember what it's under. I think it's Marco at something, Give, Send, Go. But there is a Give, Send, Go set up as well that they can contribute to.
Okay, so that email address was Van Herk, VANHERK 09 at gmail.com. And then the Give Send Go for Marco Van Huigenbos. And just the last thing that I'm kind of wondering about is the lasting impact of this all. Some of the men involved here are a bit younger. Like, is there concern of how this is going to affect, impact future jobs? Or is this really a situation where, Albertans, I know you guys are from the southern part of the province, that really people there take care of their own and that them and their families are going to be okay?
Yes, definitely. It's going to impact to some degree, and I think that was the other reason why George Janzen got the sentence he got. He's a real estate agent, and if he was to go to jail, he would automatically lose his license. And with that, then all of a sudden his job is out and gone. So he had to definitely look at that and take that consideration. And George having 8 children, the judge did look on that and say, hey, here's a man that, is a one-off type thing that happened here. And he knew that if George got sentenced to jail time, that he would automatically lose his license. I know in the political world, like I'm not sure what direction Marco wants to go, but as the advocate he is in politics in the last couple of years, I believe the UCP just ruled in their policy change that anybody with a criminal record can't become a member or something along that line. What I heard anyway in this past week. So that might impact his ability to get involved. But the way I look at it, who wants to be involved in the UCP party right now? As far as I'm concerned, Danielle Smith got in on the coattails of the freedom movement and the whole Coutts movement. And I felt that there was nothing ever given back on that aspect. So why would you support somebody that literally was there for her own purposes?
Alex, thank you so much. We'll continue to follow the rest of the case and to see kind of where it lands up with you and your sentencing.
Thanks, Rachel.
All right, everyone, that was Alex Van Herk, one of the members of the Coutts trio. We'll continue to follow his case to see, as I mentioned, where it ends up. In about 30 days, we should know what his sentencing is. All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today on The Rachel Parker Show. I'll be back tomorrow with more content. I hope that you guys have a great week. God bless.